Hey, hi everyone. Yeah, I still haven't learned how to ride a bike. I know the people that promised me to do it all graduated. So here we are. These started as, according to me, it was gonna be like a tiny paper, and it went through my entire thesis. But I'm gonna tell for you. So I had a paper put together, four papers into one paper. So I'm gonna tell like a story of that entire story, which is called "Exploring Blue Transitions and Blue Justice: A Community Lands and Aquaculture Policies in Baja California, New Mexico." These are my awesome co-authors and team. I guess I should have put my name there, but I didn't. Uh, yeah, and let's start these things. It's not. Okay. So first, I want to explain what is the blue transition, because it's a big narrative for everything we're going to be talking today. So imagine you have a fishing area with a certain fish stock, with a high fishing pressure, fishing effort. In theory, our population is going to go down. That's like the first thing that we think of. The blue transitions theory, which is practically new, it started like in 2018, says that with the implementation of aquaculture, which aquaculture, as you know, in difference from wildcat fisheries, they're in a controlled environment. You grow them like agriculture versus wildcat fisheries. It's like hunting. And in theory, with the implementation of aquaculture, again, if we go back, for example, of the fishing population, in theory, our fishing effort is going to decrease, population is going to increase, and with time, we're going to have way more aquaculture. Theory, that's going to have a lot of benefits for the communities where these things are being. The main narratives behind these blue transitions are three, and they're very important because the blue transitions are a keystone aspect of the blue economy narratives. Also, I'm going to be talking a lot of humanities things, which are very weird at friends. So it's going to be very social. So sorry for that. It's going to be fun. So the main narratives behind the blue transitions are that they will increase economic benefits, be essential for food security, and in theory, they will contribute to the recovery of wild fish stocks. Again, very important for development narratives like the blue economy, blue growth, blue revolution. So in Baja and in Mexico, in the last, I think, 5 or 8 years, Mexico wants to position themselves as the biggest aquaculture producer competing in Chile. And in Baja, their main policy targeting the conversion of aquaculture is this, where you see it's a lot of financial support, a lot of equipment, a lot of assets, a lot of seeds, everything that is needed to do the reconversion. Again, the reconversion of fishing communities to aquaculture. Basically, that's the main focus. And also, I love that they call it reconversion of sectors. But again, what happens when we think in a local context? What about the local context? What about the culture? What about the history? What about the well-being of this community? So when I started this work in 2021, and I started seeing and hearing all these stories, I was like, okay, there's something bigger to tell here. And so this is Doña Laura and her dog, and they helped me a lot to understand this story. And it started to implicate a lot of the blue justice, or like these equity and justice situations that are happening when the blue economy narratives are being implemented in all these places. So the main objective of this paper was to identify the gaps in the current transition policies, bridge those knowledge gaps of the social and cultural and historical local contexts that are happening in these communities, and assess if there's like some sort of justice framework that we can use for other stakeholders and communities to understand how can we make these transitions more just and equitable. So for this, I use, this is how we were in 2 communities, but because of time, I'm going to be focusing on community A. And I did an exploratory mixed methods. Actually, it's still 2023. Sorry, I didn't change that. For my qualitative phase, which was summer 2021 to summer 2023, I combine ethnography, direct participant observation, qualitative interviews, and focus. And so it was like a combination of different times. There were some summers. Summer 2021, for example, it was more like ethnography and interviews. Summer 2022 was a combination of direct participant observation. And summer 2023 was more like focus. And what that means is like when I analyze all the data, which I'm going to explain how, all my quantitative part, all my structure surveys, and so shout out to Christina, my amazing co-author, who's collecting data here. All these surveys, all my structure survey were based on my information here. So instead of having a theory or hypotheses like usually studying Bren, we were like coming up with theories constantly. So we analyzed the qualitative data and collecting quantitative stuff, and we also went back to qualitative constantly. And so how did I analyze this? For the qualitative data, we use thematic coding analysis based on the inductive theory of coding qualitative data. For the quantitative data, we use multiple correspondence analysis or MCAs, because in the end, we came up with like a huge multivariate database that had like, I don't know, like 40 variables and a lot of things happening. So anyways, and the cool thing is like in the end, you see the both combining, telling a complete story. Just like so some results. First of all, as you can see, the way Mexico and all these states are thinking about the blue transitions, very linear, very much like, okay, our fishery system, they're overexploited, right? Communities are like, their livelihoods are not being like benefited as before, right? Because the fisheries are exploited. So the consideration is, okay, let's give them assets. Let's give them seeds. Let's give them equipment. Let's give them materials. And in theory, then you're going to have a fishery network that's going to be reduced. Communities are going to be happy. And everyone's going to be super happy, and there's going to be money. So to tell this story, I'm going to tell you a little bit about a community. So community A are these traditional fishers, and by traditional fishers, I mean they're being generational divers for like 80 years, right? People founded this area. They were divers since they were born. This is the thing that they fish. It's called pencho. It's a benthic scallop kind of fishing thing. They, in 2011, an NGO, with international philanthropic money by the Waltons and the Walmart, started the first NGO operations. The first operation was with pension. That operation failed because they didn't have enough seats and because the community didn't do it. That's not starting later. And also, importantly, illegal fishing of the area they were harvesting for aquaculture started happening. Also, in 2014, the second aquaculture attempt for another Catarina clam started. That one also failed. It was the same NGO pushing for the reconversion or the implementation of aquaculture. And until right now, right, we're in 2019, which is the latest oyster aquaculture project that they have. And it's the one that I'm going to tell the story. To my knowledge, that is still going. So when we go to the quantitative results, and I know that it says community B, but I want you guys to focus on community A. First thing that I want you guys to notice is that it's so heterogeneous, even though it's the same community, right? So I'm going to be talking about two groups. Group number one, A1, is those people that have been involved in aquaculture since 2012. And when you ask these people, like, are you happy? Like, why are you doing this? They're not happy. They have a lot of issues, but they still believe there's some economic benefits, right? But for 75% of those people think that they still miss the traditions and freedom associated with fishing and diving. Because for them, fishing and diving is not about money. It's about traditions and freedom and being in like a free state outside. A2 is super cool and interesting too, because all these people used to be part of aquaculture. And in 2019, they decided they didn't want to do it anymore because they didn't enjoy working with people, because 100% of them say they miss the traditions from diving and fishing, and because they didn't want to do it. And interested is, sadly, all these people now became illegal fish or whatever that means. Or illegal. So then when we take a deeper look into what our quantitative data showed us, we see that we have three very important variables. Number one, they all worked in aquaculture in the past. Number two, diving. Number three, traditions, miss the stability and like traditions and all the freedom of diving and fishing. When we add all these the quantitative part that I was telling you guys about, the coordinator of the aquaculture project currently in his community kept saying to me, like, I miss going fishing, I miss going diving like the rest of the community. And I wanted to buy a boat so I can go again. And he kept telling me, like, I'm not happy, I don't feel good. What's the purpose of doing aquaculture if I'm not happy, right? Another person who works with the aquaculture project kept telling us, right, the only reason they're doing aquaculture is because the NGO told. You think about it, that has a lot of justice and equity implications, right? Again, wrapping it, like, circling back to what is a blue justice, right? All the justice and equity issues that the blue economy narratives are affecting at a local scale, sorry. If we think about it, the blue transition is not really happening, right? The fisheries are not recovered because, as we know, aquaculture is not going to solve all the issues fisheries face. But if we go specifically to the justice and equity implications, I went back and I did specific focus groups with them using justice and equity frameworks that have been used for terrestrial food systems to see what we can learn, how to make these things better. And one of the things that they kept telling is, like, first of all, people and NGOs and governments should understand we're never going to stop fishing. We're diverse. That's who we are, right? Like, I've been diving since I was like 3 years old. they were all telling me like, I didn't go to school. Diving is the only thing I know. And they should respect us that, right? We were born in the water. So when we do the framework of justice and equity on these blue transitions, I propose that we should have the blue transition in the middle, not as linear, and have all these like components of justice and equity. First of all, recognize these communities, they're heterogeneous, they're never gonna be the same. A development initiative is never gonna be applicable the same to a community, no matter how small it is. Recognize and respect for diverse cultural identities and traditions. Also, all these came out from focus groups with the communities and stakeholders. It's not like I'm making this up. Recognition and respect for statutory and customary rights, for the procedural justice, or how to include these people in all, how you implement these aquaculture, right? You have to have an effective participation in decision making, make sure that these people are included since the moment the aquaculture is implemented and throughout the entire process. And for the distributional justice, how you distribute the benefits. Again, these people know how to distribute the benefits and know how to distribute everything in their teams. They have to be the ones make those decisions and not like a NGO or an external government. Sorry. So the main conclusions are, number one, behind these, we see that the policies have like some big gaps in cultural and historical context at a local level. We propose that these policies should include all these equity, justice, local, social, cultural aspects for them to be successful, just, and equitable. Again, aquaculture cannot be the solution or continue to be sold as the solution for all the problems fisheries are facing, especially small-scale fisheries. Fisheries are facing, there's climate change, there's like pollution, there's like overfishing. Aquaculture is not going to solve it all, or a little part or anything at all. And very importantly, behind these policies, food sovereignty should be the main goal, right? When creating these policies, you need these people. Make sure that they're the ones who decide how are they gonna like build their food systems, how are they gonna manage, etc. If you really want the blue economy to really, really create tangible benefits. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Questions for Lily. Thank you, Lily. Always love to hear your talk. This just came up. I think one thing that I'm curious when you talk about the transition of people who grew up diving, I'm just wondering, has the increase in aquaculture changed how young people approach their like career, their aspiration of what a good life or what future might hold for them? Like younger generations, do they like does the agriculture change how they grow up, and how they engage with these like different types of activities?
Yeah, I think like in this community, I didn't see that of all the time that I was involved. Like you see like younger people, the thing that is sad, right? It's just like the younger people are now illegal fishers. So that's like a big change that's happening. But other than that, it's not like they're younger now involved in aquaculture and any big changes. But the other community that I didn't have time to talk in, that community is very, very interesting. It's like, I'm going to say maybe 90% of them now do aquaculture since they're kids and young. But now the thing that community is facing, this other gap in these policies, right? It's like when you have an entire community working on just one livelihood, when there's super shocks to the market or to the system, like for example, with COVID, all the oyster markets close, and then that community is facing like a big resilience too. So in that community, I did see that, but in this one,
So hi, thank you for that interesting talk. So I'm just wondering, when you do your qualitative work, did you also, because when you talk about inequalities and injustices, I'm wondering whether in your qualitative field work you also consider relevant demographic variables, for example, gender, race, ethnicity, because how culture and inequality, they actually differ across those intersectional factors, and those intersectional factors also affect how inequality will affect them.
yeah, I do more than that. I also like, for me, what you're saying is very superficial kind of demographic equity stuff. I study like very deep like power symmetries and kind of understand why. Or like, for example, again, like if an external agent comes and tells you I do aquaculture, that's already something very very unique to the system that's happening. But to your question, I didn't collect data on gender, and I just didn't have time for the women. Yeah, with this community, it's not going to be an issue with ethnicity. They're all the same. And it was with women and men, everybody.
So now we would like to invite all presenters from the session 2 to please come to the front. And big round of applause. Please.